So hi everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Tatu. I'm doing a PhD here. I'm gonna help out on doing this course. So I'm gonna run these QGIS tutorials for the QGIS course. The QGIS versions of the tutorials. So we developed them sort of 2 versions of them because, as you probably I think you discussed this yesterday, but we're not really just trying to teach you methods or Python or a specific tool, but we're trying to teach you sort of cartographic thinking. And in my opinion, many things are more pleasant when it comes to layout and sort of map making are more pleasant to do in QGIS. So we'll try out this type at least for the now for the first year. And so for this tutorial, I'm gonna suggest you first open up the course website, and I'm gonna show you how to launch the CSC notebooks if you don't know it already. So don't worry, we're gonna do all of the exercise itself in QGIS, and there's gonna be sort of instructions for that, and you can also already find them in the websites themselves. But during this week and then during the following weeks especially, there's sometimes going to be a few sort of interactive elements that are in Python, just so that you can then run the Python code and then sort of do it there. So those haven't been ported over to QGIS, which because I don't think that would make much sense. And then also you sort of get an easy access to sort of some of these files that we're going to need for the QGIS version to run smoothly. So if you've been to AutoGIS, so you know it, but I'll show this how to do it. So there's the notebooks.rahtiap.fi, and in there there's going to be a logging. So this is limited to those who are now part of the sort of Finnish university network. So you should all have a way to just use this Haka logging to get into here. Yeah, I'm just gonna follow through. So there you add your logging details for your account and basic stuff. So to recap, you'll find it on the general information, and then the first sort of you scroll down a bit. There's this notebooks.rahtiap, and then just logging there. And once you're in there, Camera has prepared this Python environment for that has all the sort of necessary libraries installed, so you don't have to mess around yourself. I think this is the easiest way to get the sort of ready-made Python toolset. You could also launch Binder from here at the top of the web page, but apparently it's really slow for this course, so the setup will take somewhere upwards of 10 minutes. So I think this notebooks way is preferable. And once you're logged in, you still need to join the workspace of the course, QGIS 2024. And you'll find that join code here just below the URL for the notebooks. So it's this one. So just copy and paste that to join workspace. And after that, the QGIS should magically appear here on the list. So then, once you have it, I'm gonna give you maybe a bit. Well, I'll start launching the session. So there should be enough for all of us, and it's going to take maybe a minute or two to launch it, and then you just have this sort of workspace on the browser, so from which you can access all these sort of tutorials in an interactive mode. And this is something I recommend, that you start every sort of tutorial session with this same sort of routine. And do keep in mind that these notebooks, these sort of environments only last for 4 hours, and after that they're deleted and everything that you might have added here are also, as far as I know, are now deleted. So don't save anything permanent in here. So notebooks, then the join code after you're logged in, insert here at join workspace, and then launch the QGIS 2024 environment. And by the way, is there someone who's completely unfamiliar with like notebooks and Python, or are you all okay? So you all pretty much know how this works. Okay, cool. And then there's this generic workspace space, and we'll still add the tutorials here, and those are hosted on GitHub. So we'll need to clone the GitHub repository to this Jupyter Lab environment. You can find it here in the course environment. There's a link to it. So just using the courses GitHub repository and tutorials.git. So once you're at this stage, just clone a repository and add it here. And there it is. And week 1, this will be added for every week as so the weeks roll by. So the new environments or new practicals will be added here. So yeah, for this week, for the QGIS stuff, we'll just be using QGIS. So there's no additional one, but for example, next week we're gonna have some like interactive color picker stuff, and then for the third week we're gonna have some non-spatial geographic visualizations, which is not something the QGIS is really good at. So then we'll use Python for that. But even then, you'll just have to run the code and not make any sort of adjustments. So for example, if you don't, I think you played around with this projection tool already, but now you can launch it from here and just, yeah. If you like at some point need to return to this, want to check out which would be a good projection for your use case if you do something with global data, and just like want to compare these projections. So this is one way to do it. This is my personal favorite. So interrupted, good homolocene. Sorry, Greenland. It's an interesting one because it's actually two different like reference systems that are mixed together. So it's different latitudes. It changes a bit. So it's a weird one. Yeah. So once more to recap from the top. So open up notebooks.rahti app, then log in with your university account, and then join the workspace using this invite code, and then just launch the workspace. And once you're at this stage, so then you need to clone the repository to this Jupyter Lab workspace. So you'll do it from here and clone a repository and paste it here. Okay. So this is something that we'll probably do every week, even here in the QGIS tutorials. But now that you have gotten the materials, so there's a few things that are sort of important for you. So there's this QGIS or Kato Intro QGIS notebook. So all of these sort of tutorials will be shared as notebooks, even if there's no runnable code. So it's just a markdown file with sort of these instructions, and I'm going to soon explain how you sort of can follow these instructions and stuff. And then with each week, there's also going to be a few QGIS files which you need to download to your sort of your local computer, and then you can use them during these projects. So I'm gonna share these style files and then these processing models that are gonna make this tutorial a bit more replicable, which is something that's sort of tough with this desktop GIS. Okay, and if you don't want to mess around with this sort of Python environment right now, so you can always find these so the markdown files, these notebooks, also on the website. So you can just open it up here, and there's nothing interactable, so it's just the text and this sort of elements and pictures, so you can also follow it from there. Okay. So, moving on to the tutorial of the week. So, what's the point of these tutorials? We're gonna sort of show you one way to apply the information that you learned from the lecture of the week and discussions maybe that you encountered or you had yesterday. So if you're going to talk about colors, so then we're going to sort of apply, hopefully have something that where you can apply those skills, and sort of this tutorial show you one way to do that in QGIS. So for example, this week we are going to make a simple line map and work out with some of the layout elements that you got introduced to, and classification of data, so we can apply data-driven classification here. And it's going to be a really simple one. We'll just get some data from like network information from OpenStreetMap, and then style the network a bit, and then sort of finalize it as a map. And for these tutorials, I'm going to do them sort of show you step by step, but I acknowledge that it's a bit boring, so you can follow along, and I recommend that just so you know that what happens. But the problem with this sort of desktop GIS, it's both boring to write these instructions and boring to follow them. Like if you, and as this is an advanced course, I try to make the sort of have as little hand-holding as possible, so enough information hopefully for you to replicate what you see, but not sort of to overwhelm you with unnecessary point-by-point information. And I mentioned these model files that you can find here, and also a link at the top. So indeed, so we're gonna, the point, like the main point of this exercise is to create maps, but we're still gonna sort of do the necessary processing steps of the data, like as you will have to do when you have your own data, so sort of remove unnecessary columns and derive new data from the existing fields, and how to style the fields correctly. So all of those steps, if you at some point need to return to this and you don't want to click through all of the sort of step-by-step instructions, so there's a model that you can import into your QGIS installation and just run it, and it will get you to the point of like these styled layers, and then you can move on to making the map. So just like a spoiler, but I also don't want you to just look at the model, because you need to understand, of course, what's happening here at all of the steps. So that's why I'll work through these instructions step by step. Then a bit on how you can follow this tutorial. So there's indeed just this like text blocks like this that have some sort of points to make or something commentary. And then there's these instruction blocks, these light blue blocks like this that usually have something that prompt you to do a thing. So run this processing tool or open QGIS. So yeah, do that now. And you can see that my version here is quite recent, but so whether you have it on your own laptop or on this GIS lab computer, so you should be fine if it's relatively recent. I think something in the, I tested it on like QGIS 3.2 something, so there shouldn't be anything shocking, but still, like these tools develop and they add new processing tools and other methods. So if you use a really old one, so you might encounter some problems. Yep. So yeah, indeed, we expect something of familiarity with like these basic GIS concepts. I'm sure you are familiar because you went through many courses of like layers, attribute tables, processing tools, basic styling information and stuff like that. Yep. And then when there's like example maps, so then usually I will try to provide style files for the layers, and so that you can replicate, for example, this is the output map of this week of this tutorial. So to replicate these sort of styles and stuffs here, so this layer style, so that's shared at this QGIS files folder, and that's always described here at the top. So what are the style files that are being used? And you can also download it from here. So just click on one of these links and you'll get it to your local computer. Okay. Any questions at this point? Okay, so then let's get to the actual tutorial. And this should take maybe 20-25 minutes, let's see. So pretty brief, and then you have a bit of time to work through this practical, and then I'll explain the independent exercise of the week. So these tutorials introduce you to these methods, and then you apply them also during the independent exercises that are happening every week. So indeed, we'll be working with QGIS data, OpenStreetMap data, and the simplest way to get that data directly to QGIS is just to get this one of these plugins called Quick OpenStreetMap. So just download it from the plugin repository, and it's a way to sort of query the OpenPass API that serves out OpenStreetMap information. So it's a really powerful tool for acquiring data, and we'll get the street network this week, but we could also get, let's say, all the restaurants in the Helsinki region if you want it like that, or all the bus stops in New York, for example. So it's quite handy. And we'll be extending this QGIS with different plugins quite a lot. So you'll be often prompted to install something new if you don't have it already. So yeah, get Quick OSM, and then let's get the actual data. So if you haven't used it before, so here's the user interface. And OpenStreetMap data is organized in this keys and values type of thing. So there's, for example, a key called highway, and then there's values that give more details on what sort of, for example, if we wanted to get only the primary street network, so we could define that we want this highway, all the data that's marked with the tag highway, and then all of those highways with the key primary. But let's actually leave it open, so then we'll get all of these highways, so all of the streets in an area. And for the example, we'll work with data from Kamppi in Helsinki. So this is actually runs a geocoder in the background, so you can just give it a place name with enough details, and then it'll limit the query to that area. Or you could use spatial predicates here as well, but we'll use this text tool one. And then we're actually only interested in lines, so just not to have unnecessary data downloaded, we'll use this in lines and multi-line strings from the advanced tab. So with that, we'll get our data. Yep. So now we have a new layer, and you'll probably be familiar with the site like this. So immediately you can see that it's actually quite badly distorted. And there's an obvious reason for it, because we are using a global QGIS 84 projection. So basic stuff. You want to have something that's more suitable for Finland and more suitable for Helsinki, for a local map like this. So set the project CRS to EPSG G067, which is a good one to use for data over Finland. So this is something that you probably encountered a lot of times before. So now we have it in a more correct projection. And let's actually reproject the data itself. So not just how it's been drawn on the map screen, but we'll need the actual sort of reprojected data to draw later on a bit of information from it. So let's tip our toes to the processing toolbox. And if you don't have it visible for one reason or another, so you'll find it here in the processing tab, and then it just appears here. So reproject. Yeah, and let's reproject it to this coordinate system that we had. So run, and we have a new layer. It's now has the correct projection. Okay. One weakness of this quick OSM is that actually if we look at the attribute table, which is something that's always good to do when you introduce to a new dataset, so actually it's quite confusing, because for every segment of the road that has some sort of, can have one of these sort of attributes, so then it's added a new column for it, for every single line. So something that's called conveying, or if there's a few of them that are ramps, so then for every segment there's going to be a new column for it. And we don't need that information. So let's make life a bit simpler for us. Let's run the retain fields tool on the reprojected layer, and just keep a few of these most important ones that you can then use later on for styling. So highway surface, which is the sort of what's the street made of. Then name, so the street name, and finally max speed for the street that has that information. Yep. So now we are almost through these pre-processing steps, so we'll have a nicer sort of data to work from and make a map from. Then finally we can draw some more information from this data, which can be then also used for styling it later on. So if you again open the attribute table, so then you can add a new field that tells us the length of that street segment in meters. So let's put a decimal number in there, and then we'll simply use this function. So at certain points in these tutorials, I'm going to use these expressions that QGIS offers. For example, now length, and later on like different ones. So if you want to look at like what do they mean, so you can always check out here in the field calculator, what does the length, for example, say, and then you have some more information here on the right. So if you pass on length to geometry feature, So then it calculates the length of geometry line object, and then you get it back in meters. So length, and you can just copy paste also these sections here from the instructions. And let's name it. What do we name it again? Let's say street length. Yeah, so now we have that information as well. Okay, so those were the pre-processing steps. And again, if you got lost at some point, so I'm gonna at the end explain how to, if you aren't familiar with these model files, so I'm gonna explain how to run them on your QGIS instance, how to get the information and then run it. But okay, now we have a simple data set, and yeah, you can see that there's a network floating in an abstract space, but we can do a bit better than that. So let's start, select some sort of story or something that we're gonna tell with it, or style it a bit. So evidently, at least we know that not all streets are made equal, so some of them are more important than the others. So we can establish a visual hierarchy, and you could do that with colors or transparency or sort of width of the object. So we'll use that width information to sort of define that some of these streets are of higher importance than the others. So to do that, we'll use data-defined expressions. And have you used those before? I don't know if are you familiar with the concept? They might have been in the data-driven overdrive, some of these small buttons here next to all of these sort of functions that you can define, for example, for the colors. So you can, every time instead of picking something from the color view, you can always define a color with something that you draw from the layer itself. And that's I think quite powerful tool. So you can define expressions with the QGIS. So the expression engine, and then it will have some sort of output. And we'll be using these quite a lot during these tutorials. So just, yeah, let's check it out, like see it in action for the width of the line network. So you can open it either from the properties, or then you want to have it like this, so you can see it instantaneously. So just have it from here in the panels and layer styling, so you can have that active. Yeah. So as the instructions tell you, there's always next to this something that you can define here. So you could set it to 1.16, but then we can override that information with an expression. So click it here and set edit. And now it expects you to return to it a double. So it expects a number given to it. And we could just put like 2.5, and now everything is 2.5. But let's do it a bit more smartly. So we'd use the information in the fields and set a conditional statement. It basically reads that when the highway field has the value of let's say footway, residential way, or tertiary way, so then the street width will be 0.3 millimeters. Or when we have these primary roads, so then we'll have it even wider. Or in all the other cases, like a catch-all statement, so then we'll have this 0.15. So then we'll sort of de-emphasize those roads. And you can just copy this information to here. Let's edit it. And remember, if something is in double quotes, so then it's a field that you're referring to. And then if something's in single quotes, so then it's no, sorry, another way. No, yeah. Sorry for the confusion. So indeed, if something is in double quotes, it's a field. If something is in single quotes, so then it's a value in that field. And now we'll have something that's maybe not particularly emphasized, but still you can see that some of these roads are now with a much smaller sort of drawing. So we're emphasizing these major roads here, and you can make other types of sort of decisions in your map as well. But yeah. And I can see that we are overriding this information that was set to this. So now we're not anymore using the flat width information, but we are at all times drawing it again with the data that's in the layer. Yeah. So there's a bit more explanation here in the text. But let's move on to another step. So we still just have a flat color scheme for the map, for the lines. So we could take many ways with this. We could color it by this OpenStreetMap information, so primary roads and something would be one color. But let's actually draw information from the street names themselves and name them streets and alleys and different with, we'll color them with different colors. Yeah. So for that, we can use this rule-based symbology. And again, this is a lot of clicking around, but you'll have the style layers shared with you later on. So this is another way to get sort of define that you do something in a subset of the data and then something other for another subset. So we'll add a few of these 3 rules actually. And all of these should have this data defined width. Actually, they don't. Let's just copy it and then paste it over to these ones as well. So we'll apply the width information to all of these. And then we'll name this first feature streets. And now we need to define a filter. So for which features are we applying actually this rule? And we'll apply it to all of the features that have the name that ends with katu. So all of the road segments that have the ending street in them. So this is again using the expressions to our advantage. And then you can set the color. So for these examples, we just have some type of color scheme, and then you can explore more on your own. So we decided on this type of, because this is qualitative information, so just like bright colors that hopefully aren't clashing with sort of people with color blindness, and then are clearly distinguishable from each other. So we can apply this same information, and I'll go through this quite quickly. So just copy paste in this. For the second class is alleys, so the ones that end with kuja in Finnish. And again, there's information on this example color. And you can set it here. So for color, choose a color and paste this HTML or hex code to it. And then we have this catch all. So for all of the streets that none of the other rules apply to, so then we can apply this other roads and else. Yeah. So now we have something that's sort of styled with the line width based on the rules, and then also line color based on this rule set. And next we could move towards sort of the layouting of this map. And I think actually at this point I'll demonstrate to you the sort of how the models work and how the style files work. So if you get stuck at some point, you can always refer to these and see how it happens, and if you want to replicate something in this notebook, so that's doable. So at the top of the notebook, you have this example street network style and a practical one processing steps. So the first of these is a QGIS style file, which actually should be downloadable and not open up like this, but anyways, we can open it also from here and just download it locally. And the same for this model. And then for QGIS, we will now have something that looks completely different. So we just, oops, we messed up and now we don't have the style anymore. So you could apply the style from, I think it's, at least the way I found it to do it is from the properties, and then there's this small style selection here at the bottom. So there you can load the style file. So basically it just does all the information that we just defined manually. So all the colors, all the line widths and stuff like that. Then you should have it in your downloads. And now we're back at that step that we just were. And then for the processing models, I think you're probably also familiar with this concept, but just to show how you do it. So from the processing toolbox, you can open an existing model, and then you should again have it in your downloads. So then it's just these same steps in a more sort of programmatic way that you can replicate. So you can see all the steps here, and then you can run the model from here. And all you need to provide to it is sort of this area that you define for the quick OpenStreetMap. So which area do you want to stylize? You can do the Kamppi, or if you want to do something different, you could apply it to another region in Helsinki or another region in Earth. So you could do it for Viikki, which I'll do now. And then have it have the style file that you downloaded, so have it selected and provide it to the model. And other than that, it should just run on its own. It takes a few seconds, and then you have a file like this, layer like this on your project. So I provided this because it's just easier than to replicate these results, which is something that's a bit annoying to do with the desktop GIS usually. So, but this is only half of the sort of fun of making a map. So now you have the defined sort of styles, and you have defined and this is now in Viikki. So you can run it for any area that you want. So next you would actually have to start making your map. And there's an example map here, so with this file. So again, this is basic QGIS stuff, but you can just launch a new print layout and start sort of layouting your map, adding all those information that's now missing. Like for me, I like it's always a good choice to have a dark background. It's sort of hard to mess up with the dark background, so I decided on that. Something like that. And then all of these map elements, which now should be styled again. some map elements for this. I think it's necessary to have a scale bar. It's not necessary, but it's good to have a ridiculously large north arrow. Yeah, and all of this other elements. So really basic stuff. Hopefully you now gotten something out of these sort of rule-based classifications of the data. And now you can go on to practice sort of to reminiscing on how to do this sort of information. So if you look at this map, for example, the example map, so I highlighted a few elements that Joshua brought up yesterday during the lecture. So what do you need for a map? So it's good to have a title for it. So it succinctly describes what's happening in the a legend that explains like the features that are otherwise hard to interpret. So what do these colors mean? We established a visual hierarchy with the street widths. Then this north arrow, scale bar, and other stuff like you could add. It could be good to, for example, now add information that this data is coming from OpenStreetMap, or you could decide on completely another type of visualization as well. Not this sort of dark. You could choose different colors, or you can pick on different features that you want to highlight on this map. But yeah, I think that's it for the tutorial part. So we still have a bit over 15 minutes. So I'm gonna let you work now for a few minutes, and please ask questions. And then before we sort of wrap up, I'm gonna show you the exercise of the week. And then also remember that there's not gonna be a help session this week because this Thursday is a public holiday. So otherwise, we're gonna have help sessions run by Pasi, and me and Camera are probably also gonna pop up there, but not this week. Okay, let's start wrapping up this week's tutorial. So we looked at a rather simple sort of street network map, and we applied we did some pre-processing to get the data a bit simpler, and we got the actual data itself from OpenStreetMap, which you can then apply also later on, hopefully, if you want, for the layer. Then we explored a bit of this like data-driven layer styling. And again, if you scroll to the bottom of the tutorial, so then you'll find instructions of how to replicate these processing steps if you run into problems. And then there wasn't too many sort of point-to-point instructions on this layouting, because then you can encourage you to sort of experiment on your own. Like if you see things that you don't like about this map, does the theme of it make sense to you? Is the visual hierarchy in place correctly? Like, is this title in a good place, or is it large enough, and stuff like that? Are the elements, the map elements that you would like to see in here? Is the text that proper sized? All those type of things. So you can play around with them, and then sort of, because the point is then to get you thinking of these things as you make your own maps. So hopefully you can now sort of get started with map making, and then think through like what do you want to see in your map, and think through your choices of why do you want to do something in a way that you do. And that's something that you'll also practice in the exercise. So each week there's going to be a more independent exercise that sort of builds on these things that we discuss on the tutorial and discuss during the lectures, and also your previous experience with GIS. So for this week, you'll have pretty free hands to do a map that you want. So you could continue exploring the street network data maybe add some like buildings to the map if you want, or then create a wholly another type of thematic map. So there's a few links here to these services that share our data, and some examples, the things that you could explore, and then a few instructions on the things that you should focus on and think through. So again, you don't sort of need to have maybe the strongest storyline on your map at this point or something, but think through it like this. Why do you lay out your map in a certain way? Which colors did you pick for it? Which projection did you went with, and why, and things like this. So you return your map, I think, as a PDF to the Moodle page, and then a brief reflection on these things. So more so than learning specific tools. So because there are many classes for it, we hope that you get from this from this course this sort of thinking of like how to make a good map, and then at the bottom of here in the exercise instructions, there's a few things that you should include. So discuss briefly, it's only half a page. So discuss your sort of map making choices, your process, and also mention the data that you used, and also the either Python or QGIS or a mix of them that you applied. Then here's the grading information. So it's always a bit sort of not as cut and dry to grade something like maps. If I now borrow from something you probably heard talk about for models, so every model will be wrong, but some will be useful. So all maps will tell some type of lies, but some will be useful, and some will tell a good story or have interesting visual elements, or just like the good cartographic elements in a correct place. So these things will try to capture the quality of the map and the reflections that you write, and some of the things that you pick up from the lecture and the discussion. So yeah. So submit as a single PDF file to Moodle, and if you create any code or processing models or whatever, so you don't need to submit those, just the output and your reflections.